Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Obviously, we spoke about this a little earlier. It means so much that you guys came out and supported the conference. I'm going to be a little selfish in the first minute and explain a little bit more why it's so significant for me that these two people are here with us today. When I was a young player growing up, you always have players you look up to, and I was fortunate enough to be a kid that was 14 years old, and I was selected to come to a Basketball Without Borders basketball camp, which is something that happens every year in Treviso. And it's where all of the youngest prospects from generation gather around in a camp. And of course, they bring these famous, incredible NBA stars. So I was lucky enough that in my generation, one of the coaches, aside from Pau Gasol, aside from Andrei Kirilenko, aside from Tony Parker, basketball icons, one of the guys that was there was Boštjan Ahbar. I don't know if you remember that or not, but I remember coming up to you and taking a photo with you and thinking like, wow, I can't believe like this is happening. That's the guy that plays my position. And later on, our paths kind of intertwined a little bit. So I have a photo that shows basically me not playing defense on you. This is everything you should not be doing as a basketball player.
You should have known scouting report. I always drove left, so I don't know what you were doing.
Listen, I spent some moments analyzing this photo because it's unfortunately the only photo I have of the two of us, and I can't explain it, honestly. I mean, I went through some basketball programs. They taught me how to play defense, but you did something, and I don't know if I was starstruck or something, but this happened, so please remove it. Thank you so much. There's no need for us to be watching this. This is enough. And to be able to share a stage with you and to take one photo with you after this panel is going to be a full circle for me. So really thankful for it.
Likewise. I thank you so much, Daiman, for inviting me here. It's a huge honor, first of all, because we're friends now in the world of sports, world of basketball, outside the court. But also being here in Zadar, for me personally, it's special because as a young kid, when I was growing up in Slovenia, I had a lot of Croatian basketball legends that I was coached by or played with, and I was just thinking this morning, like two of them. One was my coach, is Ivo Sunara, who came through Zadar, and Veljko Petranovic.
Yes.
I played with one of his last year. So maybe not super known players worldwide, but legends in these parts, and that's why it's so special to be here. So thanks.
Absolutely. One more round of applause, please, for Boštjan Ahbar. So now that we have a full circle, I have to explain to Matteo also. He probably doesn't know it or is not aware of it, but he's directly responsible for Sunset Sports Media Festival. I know you didn't know, but
I didn't get the notice.
You didn't get the notice, so I'm sharing the stage with you now in order to break the news because Matteo has obviously been instrumental in providing resources for me and many other athletes in the NBA for our post-career. So when I finished my basketball days, I turned to Matteo and to my dear professor and mentor, Professor Dino Ruta from University of Bocconi, whom we had the pleasure of hearing yesterday. And I said, hey, listen, what am I going to do with my life? So I have no idea where to go. I have no idea what to do, but I mean, I heard you got some help for me, so if I could please hear some advice, that would be great.
You're doing just fine.
Now it's okay. Now it's okay. But anyway, the MBPA has a program which we're going to talk about a little later. So it kind of pushed me in that direction and gave me the first wind in the back to kind of go into management and entrepreneurship. So I really have you to thank to being here today and for the whole Sunset thing to happening. So if you don't know, now you know.
Oh, now I know. Thank you. Vala.
All right. Now that we got the intros out of the way, obviously these two guys not only have different history in their own ways in the sport of basketball. Matteo was an agent, then he came up, to basically being one of the most important people in the National Basketball Players Association. Now he's in charge of the player experience. Boštjan obviously played so many levels of professional basketball, from top to bottom, NBA, EuroLeague, and then turned into his managerial role. So what I want to talk about today is basically a lot of stuff that you guys are doing on your day-to-day. You're managing some of the biggest stars in the world. So all the Nikola Jokic's, all the Doncic's, the Wembanyamas, the Antetokounmpos, the Kemba Walkers, the Kyle Hineses, the EuroLeague stars, the Nick Calathis, they all somehow go through your hands. And we know players are not the easiest people in the world to talk to. So I want to hear your expertise on how to basically reach those guys and tell them, hey, this is what you need to do, this is what we would like you to do, this is best for you. So how do you find yourselves in those roles?
Want me to start? I think as always, listening first. We are accustomed to receive and to associate athletes, high-level athletes, with a stereotypical picture of them. And the moment you have access and you have the chance to actually sit down and get to know their personal stories, where are their buttons? You know, each one of us have a different button somewhere else. And I'm privileged to be in the position to be able to have access to them. And every time there is an interaction, I'm going to learn something more about it. And I know that there is one thing that I really have to do all the time, is to bring value. If I'm not able to bring to the table value for these very high-profile individuals who are accustomed to the best of the best and everything that they do, I have no chance. Because when they go out of a locker room, there are 100 people saying hi to them. When they go on the street, people want their attention. Unless you don't find your niche as an organization, as an individual, and you're not able to tear down this mistrust, this wall that athletes must build, because everybody wants a piece of them, you're not going to be able to actually break through and deliver the value that they need also for their personal development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would kind of piggyback on what Matteo said. I think the key word here is to listen, you know. And that was when we started with Player Association in EuroLeague, was something completely new in 2018. It's not like NBPA, which has been not just existing, but it's been extremely powerful for decades. You know, we started something completely new, and the culture and the environment of players or the locker rooms that when we walked in, you know, 6 years ago was, okay, so what is this guy gonna tell us and command us to do, right? And it was completely the opposite. The first year when we started ELPA was all about listening. It really was. It was about what are your problems, what things you want to change. But then once we heard all that, we said, okay, but now it's going to be up to you guys to step up and do this together, you know. And I think that's when players finally realized that, okay, we have an opportunity to change some things, and that's how we got their ears, you know, to start listening to us more as in the second stage when we brought some solutions to their problems. So it was not always easy at the beginning, because you go from, you know, unlike, you know, the NBA, here you go from country to country, from culture to culture, from one historic club to the other, and it's very difficult to change mentalities of people and players. I've been one of them who for decades was told, this is how you do things, it's our way or the highway, right?
Yeah.
And it took some time, but players finally realized that not with confrontation, but with dialogue, you can change things. So yeah, but the key word was definitely to listen players at first.
Yeah, to listen players and to develop trust, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people have obviously a lot of prejudice about the players, but we're responsible for some of them. Very, you know, we have to be accountable as well. I mean, we're spoiled. We're spoiled. I mean, Boki, you were a player, I was a player, you know, and you know, you're used to, you know, told where to go, what to eat, when to be on the bus, what to wear, and you're kind of in this bubble, right? Everything is structured for you. You have no touch with the real world. And like Matteo said, there's all of these, you know, little satellites around you that want a piece of you. They want to, you know, they want to give you the business opportunity. They want to take your money. They want to, you know, maybe have you promote something. And players are kind of stubborn in their own way. So that trust is, I guess, I mean.
Yeah, trust is huge, but you know, I also think that on one hand, I mean, you're completely right. You know, maybe spoiled is a little bit of a strong word.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a wrong one. I
Be
don't think
hard
it's a
on
wrong one.
yourself. Come on.
As it was coming out of my mouth, I know it was a bit strong.
Yeah, but I would say that players are also masters in their craft. I mean, I haven't seen, now that I'm doing other things in life as well, I haven't seen other people work so hard at their craft as I've seen most of basketball players throughout my career. I mean, some of the best players that I had the opportunity to play with have been also the hardest workers I've ever seen in life. I mean, the dedication that they did or do towards basketball and towards becoming the best version of ourselves is uncomparable. So the key, I think, is to then transfer that motivation, desire to compete, desire to improve into the other aspects of life. So being able to take it out of sports and do that in, first of all, family and social life, business, you know, and other opportunities that present to you, whether it's also education, et cetera, which I'm sure you're going to touch on. You know, that's then the hard part from players to make them realize, hey, it's not just basketball that exists. There's other things as well.
Can I ask you guys something? I'll become the moderator for a
Yeah,
second.
please.
How do you give trust? How did you give trust during your career to people? What was that wall? When could people turn the corner with you all?
Oof. It was tough. I mean, especially when you make it in the NBA, then, the stakes are higher in every communication you have with all the people around you. Obviously, you have your inner circle, which is your family and, your closest friends. But it was funny, actually, watching how people around you change. Once you make it to the NBA, you have all these cousins you never heard about. You have all these friends from childhood that, hey, you remember and this and that, and I have this. So, keeping that, kind of controlled was the biggest challenge. So, and I made some mistakes along the way as well. I, trusted some people that maybe I shouldn't have trusted, but you live and you learn, right? So, but I can't really tell you. It's it was very individual, obviously, for me. I was fortunate enough to have a great circle of trust with the people around me, and I don't know how it was for you, Boki.
No, I think as I was getting older, the more and more you learn from experience. I mean, to add to what you were saying already, to try not to repeat the same mistakes, to try to learn from other people's mistakes. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because you're in the locker room, you're in this close circle where, a lot of times things in the locker room are said and not being brought out to the world. And if you listen, you can kind of see, hey, this guy made a mistake by doing that, the other guy made a mistake by doing this. And if you're smart about it, you're going to try to learn from that as well. It's almost like a free education you get when you are a young player and you walk into a locker room of 30, 35-year-old veterans, right? So, also using that, I think it's important. The smart players will definitely use that as an educational tool.
Yes, for sure. And also, getting to the NBA, obviously, you see, the full force of NBA Players Association coming at you with the rookie transition program, with the programs that throw at you, with the mandatory classes, and then you feel like, okay, this is important. Like, these are people that are trying to get through to me, and they're basically, kind of pushing it my way, shoving it always, the programs in my sight so I can see them somewhere here, and it shows, the care. It shows the care. I think that's, and obviously it's an institution. I mean, it's a union that is, made to do exactly that, protect the player and enable him the next phase of his career. But when we spoke about the qualities that you take out, actually there was a piece of paper I was trying to find. I couldn't find it. But in one of the classes that the NBA Players Association provides for all the NBA players, one piece of paper stood out, and it's going to forever stay in my mind, and it kind of showed me what can happen in my post-career. On one piece of paper, I don't know if you remember, it was the qualities you need to become a successful CEO. And there was like 20 qualities written there, and it seemed like a very, very long list. And you're looking at it and you're like, holy man, like, whew, being a CEO is like, how do you get there? And then you flip the page, and it's the list of qualities you need to make it to the NBA. And it's that plus 10 more things. And that's when you say like, oh, okay, like we already did the hard part, so now it's about isolating the important traits and qualities and transferring them further, right?
And it's hard to look at this as opportunities for growth, right? Because, I mean, for both of you, you guys had to change country, change culture, change the game that you were playing, prove yourself. I think there's a tremendous extra pressure when you are the flag bearer on your country, in the NBA, for example, because, your people are far away back home and you don't want to let them down because you're representing them somehow. So being able to actually find the energy to focalize on something that is not the court, I think it's a huge challenge. So now that is when it's on us, as we have to create these opportunities, these growth opportunities to make it sexy a little bit. Because in the end, when you play sports, you are 20.
Yeah.
Yes, you have a lot at your disposal. But more importantly, you're young and you have a lot of responsibilities that usually at 20 you don't have. And very often athletes get married very early, they have kids very early. I think it's a blessing because you guys can enjoy them, right? But at the same time, there's a lot. There are the cousins who are calling again. And so I think that has been a big focus of our evolution, I would say. It stopped at looking at the moment the ball stopped bouncing. That's how they say in America, which is something I hate because that's such a hard threshold. That moment, we all know it's tough. A part of you dies, your identity, what is your identity?
Yeah, who are you?
Who are you? You don't know anymore. But the point is what you have been doing the previous 10, 12, 15 years to prepare you for that moment. You cannot start, that moment or even 4 years before. You can start as young as possible. That has been a big focus for us.
Yeah. No, speaking from, thinking about my experience and listening to you guys. I mean, Matteo is not gonna like this, but when I went to the NBA the first couple of years, I didn't even know the distinction between NBA and NBPA.
They're doing
Like-
a better job now to make guys.
Because when we had these meetings, everything was NBA to me. And then as years go on, you started to realize some of the things that you know your previous colleagues were talking about is just that. It is transition. And you know, I'm not going to say nothing new here, but it is a fact that athlete dies twice, you know, once they finish their career and then, you know, later in life. And I think that narrative now is changing because we also see finally in Europe this switch where players are being younger and younger when they're starting to realize that there is a life after basketball. And first of all, kudos goes to the NBA and more specifically NBPA, who's been leader in this. And, you know, everybody else on this side of the ocean has been just privileged enough to be able to see what you guys have done and then try to, I wouldn't say necessarily copy and paste, but copy and then adjust to European environment and do similar. And we're seeing some good results over the last couple of years.
That literally leads us to, I mean, you made a perfect introduction to the concept of cultural agility, right? Because you have so many different guys moving in different directions. And like you said before we were talking in the panel, you guys kind of pass the torch to one another because when an NBA player goes to EuroLeague, you're calling Boki and you're like, hey, this guy's, you know, be ready for this because he's used to, you know, one style of doing things and now all of a sudden he's going to come to another playing field. You know, I always remember a story because one NBA player, you know, he went from NBA to EuroLeague and he made a big problem because there was only one towel in the locker room for him to wipe himself with, because when you're in the NBA locker room, you take 7 towels. One is for the head, one is for the shoulders, and you're comfortable, you know what I mean? So it's the little things, right? You adjust to and it goes both ways. When a player goes from Europe, EuroLeague, to the NBA, just different mentalities.
I think that adjustment is easier, probably, you know. but we do see American players coming to EuroLeague, the guys that have played in the NBA successfully, some more, some less. But you know, maybe 2 examples like this year. You know, Kemba Walker was in EuroLeague, who was you know, former All-Star player in the NBA, but extremely humble guy. Didn't have a big role in Monaco, but accepted his role. And you know, when we had a meeting with the team, you know, we were surprised from the ELPA staff, like extremely humble, but also the team absolutely loved him, you know, even though he didn't have a big impact. Then you have a different example, successful one, Kendrick Nunn in Panathinaikos. You know, a guy that played in the NBA, came into one of the most harsh environments you can have, playing for Panathinaikos. Not just that they won EuroLeague, but he was in the first year already one of the best players, not only on his team, but in EuroLeague. And those are the successful examples. But you also have situations where successful NBA players in the past came over and hit the wall right away and never got over it, because the cultural difference is so big that it's just not for everybody to be able to adjust.
Yeah. How do you see it, Matteo?
Yeah, that transition is so tough.
Yeah.
You know, every time we have to cross borders, it's so tough. I think actually as Europeans we have an advantage. When you jump on a Ryanair flight, in 2 hours you're in a completely different place.
Yeah.
Completely. Yesterday I had cevapici, you know, like it was, and 2 hours flight I can have. Actually tomorrow I'm gonna have risotto. in my
Cevapi,
country.
risotto.
Huh?
And you love Gregada. I know Gregada is your favorite.
Can I find Gregada here?
Yeah, we'll find you some
We find Gregada tonight?
We'll find.
Okay, love it.
People who know good Gregada around will
I can't wait.
reach out to Matteo after the panel.
Last time I had in Split, it was, I still remember it. We spoke about it. No, but those transitions are so tough. And you have to kind of, it's like going in apnea a little bit, you know? You have to hold your breath and walk through things and really figure out also what are your anchors, right? And your anchors, you touch on some of them. Is it your family? Is it your passions? We come from a world, and I know this is big in the Balkans, right? In the old school traditional approach that, you know, these legendary tough coaches instilled in here is you focus on the game. Everything else, you don't even have to think about it. Actually, it's a question for you guys. How important is to find while you're playing another passion, an outlet? Because, you know, when you're a young player and you have to get established, of course, you're going to keep your head down and do your thing and play because you have to prove yourself. But when you're 28 and it's like 15 years you have been bouncing a ball, don't you need also, as everybody who has a job, like to think about something else?
Maybe not at 20, but for me personally, later on, you know, for me it was, I would say, instrumental to find things outside basketball, you know. Because I needed that outlet to refocus, to focus away from basketball, and the next day refocus back on basketball. I think that's key. And you know, interestingly, we had a conversation with one of the players during the season when we were talking about second career of players and what comes after. And one player told us, I don't want to focus on nothing else, what comes after basketball, because then I'm going to lose focus on basketball, you know. And actually the response from my colleague was exactly the opposite, which was, well, if you focus now on what comes after, don't you think that your today is going to be better? You're going to be more relaxed, more focused, you know, more motivated to do things now. And actually, interestingly enough, that player changed his mind, enrolled in the second career program, and started doing things for his second career, for his life, right? So, you know, it's very important to have this outlet while you play. That's at least what I believe. I mean, I'm sure there's other people who will say, no, you got to be 100% focused on your basketball. I'm just not one of those people that believes that.
I think you gotta stay focused on basketball, but the day is still 24 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you doing with all that time? In particular now, I mean, I'm thinking EuroLeague. In the past, there were less games. Now your players travel all the time. How are they taking advantage of the time they have in their hands? Are they studying? Are they reading? Or they're just, you know?
No, we have players who are in programs who actually are disciplined enough that they can do things while they travel or while they're in the hotel rooms and wait for next practice next day. And talking to these players now, we haven't done that. Our generation hasn't really done that, but this next generation is doing that. And talking to them, it's interesting to hear that it's not taking away their energy, it's not taking away their focus, and it actually is helping them refocus and re-energize. So it's all about finding this balance. But first of all, I think it starts with knowing yourself, who you are, your strengths, what do you want to do, and how you get there. You know, and you know, those players that can do that, we only see positive examples.
That's fantastic that things are moving in that direction. Unfortunately, I have to be very, you know, criticize myself because I was that comfortable, lazy guy when it comes to investing in my second career, because I thought, oh, I got to be 100% focused until, you know, I really stop playing. And now looking in hindsight, it was a mistake. I really had time in a day. I really did. But you're just comfortable. You love your life. You're like, it's the best job in the world and nothing can compare to it. You travel, you play basketball. It's not a job.
You still take those 1 hour naps in the afternoon?
No, I haven't taken a nap ever since I stopped playing because the day is short. You know, the whole world opened up for me, so the day is really short with everything I'm doing, and I cannot even imagine the waste of time and, you know, with all those naps. But obviously, you're a player, you're in a certain mode, you have a certain MO, and you're kind of sticking to it. And, you know, unfortunately, I didn't discover my post-career path until after it really happened. But I think this is a great intro into the whole post-career thing. You know, obviously you guys being in charge of educating players for the second stage of their life. Tell us a little bit about, you know, the initiatives that you have. Obviously, you want to provide the players with all the possible resources. If you want the best real estate agent program, we can, you know, hire you or set you up with the best realtors. If you want to go into broadcasting, if you want to go into, you know, beat writing, whatever you want, we can provide those resources both at EuroLeague and both in the NBPA. So I think Mateo also has some slides that he wants to show in the video of the initiatives. So maybe you can talk on the ones that are prepping players for their post-career.
No, go ahead. I mean, it's yeah. Then I'll add to what.
You'll add to that. Yeah, no, I think we are in a very interesting crossroads right now in terms of the holistic development of athletes. Traditionally, the industry have been targeting at that threshold, that moment in which the player retires. Specifically for NBA players, right now, they have access to anybody and anything that they want at their fingertip. When they go and they prepare for the next game, they can talk to not only to Jay-Z and Beyonce, which is fun, right?
Always fun.
But also to another type of millionaire, because yes, also Jay-Z is actually a billionaire, but like entrepreneurs, people who are business folks, right? And so what do you do with all this access that you have? Because we know, and I know there are some former athletes here in the room, when you stop playing, also your phone, you know, it doesn't ring as much, right? Or if you're conducting an outreach, people might not pick it up. So we have changed our strategy. We're still focusing a lot around you know, that threshold we have been talking about. But to me, the whole point is, how do we plant a seed in the mind of these young players so that we can give them more confidence, more skills, hard and soft skills, to actually being able to take advantage for the next 10, 12 years, their career, of all the access that they have. Yeah. And yeah, this journey started. We are calling his name quite a bit today. With Professor Dino Ruta. Again, like as he said yesterday, we met in New York a few years ago, and when we started this program in Milano, and the goal was really how do we engage a younger demographic, and how do we speak about business to 20 years old athletes? Well, let's start from their passion. Let's be less paternalistic. Oh, you shouldn't become this. Oh, be careful of this. And let's plant a seed through one of their passions. And what are NBA players into lately? Fashion. And what happens in Milano?
Fashion.
Couple of things about fashion and luxury. And so we designed this initiative on the left-hand side that is called One Core Milano. I'm going to show a video in a second. The evolution, I would say, of that was actually, and that is happening in Europe as well, in Andalusia, between Malaga and Marbella. It's a nice place. Almost as nice.
I was about to say.
Almost as nice.
Choose your words wisely.
Yeah,
We're in
almost as
Croatia.
nice as Zadar. But we brought in the last 2 seasons in Milano. With this year, it's going to start next week. We're going to have more than 80 players came through it.
Yeah.
And at the sanctuary, we had 21 players last year. And so this is picking up. And at the sanctuary, it's basically a performance retreat. One day, one player, I can mention his name, was Evan Fournier, told me, in the summer, Matteo, I got to spend more time in LA because here, after a while, I don't have the motivation to actually...
to get in shape.
Yeah, get in shape and push myself. And so I said, what if we bring LA to you? And so we identified this location in Marbella that is actually run by another former player and colleague of yours, Jose Calderon. With that said, I think the videos are going to speak more about it, and so let's start.
Tee it up.
You're in Milan. You can't come here enough. If you're from over there, across the water, you want to come out here.
One Corp Milano is, opening some wide horizons for me, not only in fashion, but in businesses as well. So a great opportunity.
There's really no better place to start than Milan itself. I mean, there's so much to do and see. The food has been off the chain. It's like magic.
This is a massive opportunity that people don't get on a regular basis.
Being able to talk to some of these CEOs firsthand, I think it was great. Me being a fashion guy myself.
The CEOs of like these top brands that are coming in, and you get to pick their brains, just of how they built their brand from the ground up.
One day hoping to, start, build, and grow my own personal brand.
I'm really enjoying my experience.
I'm proud to say our Player Association is able to put on. It's been great.
Again, it's been a great journey. A lot of players came through, and the guys learned so much through it. Kudos to Bocconi, to Dino, and his team, because we were able to build a very safe environment. Because that's the other challenge is like, how do you become, how are you comfortable in a room that usually you're not, right? Because it's a classroom setting. So you need a little bit of courage from the athletes, and you need a little bit of strategy. Us who have to build it.
That's one of the reasons why, for example, with ELPA, we do this second career coaching where, it's like 5 sessions where player is one-on-one with a career coach, actually opening their eyes on, like I said before, who you actually are, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what do you want to do later in life, and how do you get there? Because a lot of players have an idea, but they don't know how they get there. And we had a meeting this year with one of the players in I'm not going to say the name to embarrass him, but in Bayern. And we had a career coach, and we were just going around the room, about the locker room, and saying, so what do you want to be after your career? And one player said, I want to be a DJ. And he was going like this, but everybody laughed. And then our career coach, he asked, but what do you actually know about DJing? Not just about making music, but how do you actually connect with people? How do you manage your career? How do you get to the venues? How do you push your product? And you could see it on blank face, right?
He didn't know.
So exactly. So players know what they want to be. I'm not saying all of them want to be DJs, but obviously, players have an idea. But this path on how you get from being on TV every day, being an idol, and then doing something else in life, this is the path that has to be.
There's a methodology, right? The steps,
yeah.
the 1, 2, 3. You can make it happen.
Exactly.
but
And
there's a
you know another
structure to
very
it.
important thing, we should connect that player with Ronnie Cycli, you remember?
Yeah.
Player
Oh,
from
yeah.
the 90s from the Miami Heat. He's one of the biggest DJs in
I'm
Miami.
saying it publicly now. I hope this gets to him. Ronnie Cycli is on my bucket list to bring him to Sunset Sports Media Festival. So if we know people that know people, we'll make it happen. Hopefully one day. One of my idols as well.
We get to Ronnie, but that speaks to how important for the generation of players before you to actually pass down their
Yeah.
knowledge.
Exactly.
And you guys probably in that position now, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
be careful. I'm gonna call you guys to connect you with some younger folks. So be
All
ready.
right.
We're all about connections. So, since we are a sport business conference, I want to touch my last question before we open up to Q&A because I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions. The perception of sports in U.S. and Europe is just so different, and everyone is always asking me, whether it's on the panels or interviews, like, "Hey, what's the difference between like Europe and the NBA? What's not only how would the teams do when they play one another, but just the perception of sports, right? Because in Europe, it's still in some places literally life or death. It's the oscillations and the altibajos, as the Spaniards say, they're just too big. And in the United States, entertainment, right? It's about selling the high quality product. I think NBA's incorporated as NBA Entertainment. I think that's the name of the company. So just, can you talk about the differences from your perspective?
I mean, I'll try to be short on this, but I think it's very obvious. I mean, you just mentioned the NBA Entertainment, right? And it is true. I mean, NBA is this, big, huge entertainment business, which, by the way, has incredible basketball and by far, of course, best talent in the world. But comparing it to European basketball, to EuroLeague more specifically, EuroLeague has a slogan: "Every game matters." To my opinion, it's true, except for the third place game, which is horrible. But
We're getting rid of that finally.
we're
will?
we're working on it aggressively.
We moved it. No more third place
I mean,
game.
there's
You
really
heard it here
no
first.
there's no room for meaningless games in this schedule. But I'm not going to get too much into that. The point is that yes, the players who are not from European school of basketball, who I'm going to speak from their perspective, who come into EuroLeague or in any other league, including national team competitions, the passion that they see in every game of this life and death almost situation, it's incomparable. Here it means so much to beat a city rival or to beat a rival from a different country. NBA just does not have that, no matter how, we want to deny it or not. It has other qualities that are incredible. Going to a game in the Madison Square Garden, I still get goosebumps by either watching or playing those games. It's something the best thing you can live, but or your experience. But the passion is here, and I think that's the main difference. The players realize that here you cannot have off days, because off days can basically mean that your whole season is disrupted because of that, and it's change of the coach. 10 coaches got fired this season in EuroLeague. Players' contracts don't get extended after the season. They're mostly short-term contracts. And it's just a different environment, whereas NBA, because it's so successful, has long-term contracts, financially much, much bigger contracts. It has, I'm sure, other issues, but not the one of, if you lose one game,
It's done.
it's
End
done.
of the world.
Yeah.
I think if you get off days in the NBA, you're just going to lose your job. Maybe not the game, but eventually, there are, of course, superstars who make a difference, and that, they can take maybe one game a little bit slower. And probably they need it because it's pretty demanding. You guys know 82 games, which I know now is comparable to a EuroLeague season with the national competition. It's so demanding. But at the same time, an average career of an NBA player is 4.5 years. It means that there are revolving doors into the league. And you guys know, you're a great example. Every kid in the world, that's where they want to play. So you know that you made it 1 year, and the following year, there's 60 more guys that are coming for your
The
job.
turnaround is so, the volume of players changing every year is just incredible.
Yes. On the entertainment side, it's a great show. It's a great product. I personally love the playoffs. To the point that I say, like, okay, if we need 82 games, then arrive to this pinnacle moment, let's do whatever is
worth it.
necessary.
Now you have the mid-season cup, Euro style, right?
There we go.
We stole that. We stole that.
There we
stole
go.
We stole that from you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to leave it up to the audience. I think we have a floating mic. So if we have there we go. There we go. coming your way.
Hello, everyone. You have talked about transition culturally and everything, but what about the rules change? I mean, in the NBA, players play 12 minutes, here 10. About the number of fouls they can get, 3-second violation. How did you manage where you go from Europe to NBA, and what is your experience from Kemba or Kendrick when they come from 12 to this?
Good question. I think that's obviously a very important aspect of players' lives and careers when they make this switch. I don't think it's that big of a problem for players to adjust. I almost think that it's almost easier for guards and forwards than for big guys. And from what we've seen, most of the players who come from the States to EuroLeague, from the rules aspect, they adjust just fine. It's more of a cultural aspect and the pressure aspect that they have that is causing them problems. And then vice versa, going to the NBA, I think it depends at what stage of your life and career you go. If you go as a young player, I think you're more easily to adjust if your body and your strength, speed can adjust to that. I think later in career you go as a player, it's probably more difficult to adjust to this quicker game that is more open, especially defensively, causes quite a few problems. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, same thing. But I want to hear Mateo's opinion.
You don't want to know my opinion about the game, I hope, right?
The what?
I'm not gonna give any comment about the game.
About my game?
No, about my understanding of the difference to this question. Go ahead, sorry.
No. That's what I wanted to hear. Just in terms of do you think there's ever going to be like a unified playing field in terms of the rules? That's also like one of the things, because it's always like, oh, who would win, right? An NBA champion or EuroLeague champion? Depends on where you play, right? Depends on where you play.
I'd love to see European or FIBA basketball go a little bit more in direction of the NBA to have a game a little bit more open. 3 seconds for those guys that know basketball in detail. Defensive 3-second violation is such a game changer. I mean, that's almost like a different sport. And I like that rule. I think it opens up the court and it shows really, or it separates the super talented player from a less talented player offensively. Another one is goaltending. In Europe, you can just swat the ball out of the rim every time you want. In NBA, that's not allowed. So things that maybe make a little bit difference, but for player, that's quite a big difference, especially comparably to a score. 80, 90 points maybe in EuroLeague games. 110 now in NBA, 120. It's like an average almost. So that's the big difference.
The numbers are crazy.
As always, it's also a matter of infrastructure, right? Like these changes need a bigger court, which needs a lot of change, and we know how tough it is to have the right infrastructure in Europe, for example, and even in other part of the world.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think Mateo and Boštjan are going to stick around and going to be available for some more questions. I kindly ask you to give a big round of applause. Thank you so much for coming. I mean, thank you for your insights. Thank you for supporting the conference and for making your way over here. It means really a lot to me, and I hope to see you sometime soon.